Good morning and welcome to this meeting. A meeting that is done in what we call as the Youth Month. We appreciate what has been done by President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, in appointing as a CEO one of our entities, CIBD, Mr. Bongani. Is it Ladla? Yeah, but Mr. Bongani, who is a young person at the age of 32. The reality is that the country's population is getting younger and younger each day. The average age of those that are in our country are young people. So for an appointment of a young person, I think we are in the right direction. I think we all know that Mr. Bongani has been there acting after the CEO passed on at the helm of CIPT. And again, he was there even before he passed on. So it's a young person with experience who has joined that. It's not someone who is new, maybe from another department, but it's someone who has been at the helm of that entity, obtaining the audit outcomes that are so good, as we know that it's one of the entities that is
recording in progress.
So we congratulate him and welcome him in the fold of DPWI and its entities. Today, honorable members, we are here to get an update or report on the refurbishments of the Parliamentary Villages, and again, an update report on what is happening on the Telcom Towers. I think honorable members will remember that our first oversight visit when we came in 2019 in August, Telkom Towers in Pretoria was one of the buildings that we visited then. And we were not happy with what was being done at the time, knowing fully well where is that project coming from and the amount of money that has been spent at that time. It is now 2022, no longer 2019. So we want to understand what is happening there. And also what we saw in the villages and what we were told is going to happen in the villages. So today we are here to get an update on those reports, because even here in the Parliamentary Villages, as the Portfolio Committee, we did oversight, a visit emanating from reports that we are getting and complaints all over of the state of some of the houses that the members are staying in. We did visit and we saw, but we also saw that there is a project that is currently running. With those few words, honorable members, TM and your team, we welcome you in the meeting. Ms. Martinez is assisting the ad hoc committee on looking at the floods that destroyed many buildings, houses in our country, especially in KZN and Eastern Cape. So she is part of that team. I understand that it is going to Eastern Cape today, so she's not in. We have Ms. Madia, who is here to assist us. I think she's the one on the screen that we can see. Can you please fly to the agenda? Ms. Madia, as she's doing that, we can also acknowledge the apology that we received from Minister who is not well. And again, do you have any apology, Ms. Madia?
Aside from the Minister, Chair, there's no further apologies.
Okay. Thank you. Let's also welcome back Miss Inez, who has not been well in the last few weeks, but today she is here with us. We are then sure that no. This is not our agenda.
Sorry, Chair, can I ask Sita Bisa to please flag the agenda, because this is the only one that I think was sent to me by in error.
We do have the agenda, honorable members. Oganye, is Tabi in?
Yes, good morning, Chair. I was just talking to one of our colleagues now.
Can you share the agenda on our? Yeah, I also do have it,
yes.
But yeah.
Yes. Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I was just talking to Khadija earlier that I am also experiencing technical glitches with my laptop. It's not working at all, so I'm operating from myself.
Okay, but honorable members, our agenda today, we are going to deal with the two items that are mentioned in my welcoming remarks: a report on the Telkom Towers, a report on the Parliamentary Villages project. Those are the two items that we're going to deal with in today's meeting. I am not good to get in the issue of this one. For me to share the agenda, I won't be able to. Let's invite DM. I know I have seen that even acting DG is here. DM, over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I don't know what's happening in my video because it's on my side, but I don't see the picture. Honorable Chair, good morning to your good self, to the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, Acting DG and his team, together with the support team from Parliament and our guests. Thank you very much for having us this morning, ensuring that indeed we give meaning to our democracy, that of keeping authorities accountable for the work that they do and the commitments that they have made. We don't take this work lightly and thus appreciate it. Further to that, Honorable Chair, yesterday we were at Saldanha Bay to conduct the very oversight that the honorable members are doing on us, doing it on our officials who were charged with the upgrade of the 13 proclaimed small harbors. And I must say that I was excited when I saw how much of excitement communities in that part of our country were excited. The level of their own excitement made us feel good. In that, 925 jobs were created, and one female SMME, female-owned company of SMME, that was quite overjoyed because exposure to that small work that she was doing has enabled her to now clinch another contract, which is bigger than the contract she was having in another department, which for us, talks to our resolve to make South Africa work through public works. We may be experiencing problems here and there, but I think the reports will indicate that we are hard at work to deal with the economic challenges we find our country in, especially with respect to job creation, wish to address the high unemployment rate. Chair, I am understanding that Minister fell very ill yesterday as we were coming from there. In fact, she became worse when we were in Saldanha, to a point she had to go straight to the doctor. I would want to also add her apology, but also indicating that out of that, I'm going to have to multitask, because also the select committee on economic development and public works is also meeting at 10 this morning. So I will be straddling between the two meetings, but we do have, as you indicated, Chair, our acting DG on the platform, and presentations were sent on time to the honorable members. I think that rather than me talking too much, the reports in themselves will kind of show and indicate the commitment we have to contribute to South Africans working. I will, through the DG, through your permission, Chair, request the DG and his team to continue with the presentations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DM, and we note what you are saying to us, that you will have to juggle two meetings at the time. We hope that you will be able to do so in the absence of the minister, but with acting DG also here, that would be good. But we are happy that you are here with us. Then acting DG and your team.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and a good morning to the members of the committee, and also to my colleagues in Parliament and also in the department. Chairperson, you have directed that we actually provide a briefing to the committee on the Telcom Towers and our plan to migrate the subs into the Telkom Towers, and also to look at the Parliamentary Villages and the governance thereof, as well as the status and maintenance of that. At the outset, Chair, we have to admit and accept that the Telcom Towers project has been significantly delayed and has suffered inordinate delays, which have now prompted us to work in tandem with SAPS in as far as getting our act together to ensure that the migration process can be finalized. We have ran into a bit of challenges after the phase one of the project. As we do speak today, SAPS are occupying one tower in that cluster of buildings. And this tower was prepared and for SAPS to move in. We are working on phase two in terms of migration to the other buildings as well as to the second tower. And with the challenges that we have now picked up from the second tower, they require refurbishments and also work to be done. Two key critical things are a big challenge. The one is the HVAC system, as well as also the identified dampness that is found in the second tower. which would not be suitable for immediate utilization. And there has not been forthcoming confirmations of project funding to be able to execute that part. And this has delayed the migration significantly. I will, however, request that our DDG for construction project management that he presents to the committee and shows what the cluster looks like and what we have done up until now and what still needs to be done and what is our plan going forward with subs. We have noted the concerns that subs have raised in as far as their current occupation of phase one, and those we are dealing with them as part of our total facilities management program. And we are also looking at getting it to the requisite standard that subs require. There are little irritations of where the location of plugs and where sources of power should be at and other related aspects that subs once addressed, and that we are attending to. Our biggest prize, obviously, is on finalization of the migration plan, and we have now agreed that the only best solution may be the provision of the second tower for purposes of a refurbish, operate and transfer program, and thereby allowing for private sector funding to be utilized so that we can fast track the process of getting the towers ready and of getting the entire cluster functional, and where subs can then have as their own campus within the CBD of Pretoria. With your indulgence, Chair, I would request that we allow Mr. Mohotu, our DDG for construction project management, to present to the committee.
Thank you, Acting DG. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Honorable DM, Acting DG, and colleagues. I have been requested to give a presentation on the Telkom Towers. Our presentation is about 22 slides. With your permission, Honorable Chair, I'm going to go through the presentation and give a highlight of the key aspects around this particular project. If we move to slide number 4, slide number 4 gives an overview of this particular complex, being the Telkom Towers complex. It consists of a number of towers, including on the northern block, the Telkom Towers West. Then we have the Telkom Towers North, the Telkom Towers East, and then we have the annex and the PR building situated in the northern side. And on the southern side of the complex, we have the Telkom Towers South IT building, PR building, central building, and Somerset House. All of these buildings, in terms of the migration of subs, have been programmed in a phased approach, and each particular phase is linked with private sector leases, which with time are being eradicated, where the department then, with time, with this phasing, realizes savings that will then be made. When we move to the next slide, we highlight the aspect around the total accommodation of the complex itself. It is in excess of 279,000 square meters, which is a very big complex. And at the time of the feasibility study, we had anticipated that the Telkom Towers North will be phase 1, and then the Telkom Towers East will be phase 2. The annex will then be phase 2. The West Wing also be part of the phase 2 of the migration. Then the Telkom Towers South will form part of the phase 3. The IT building will form part of phase 4. The PR building will form part of the phase 5. Somerset House Central Building will then come a bit later. However, we have since optimized the migration in terms of the engagements that we've had between ourselves and subs, and the demands and the requests that subs have subsequently made, where we had then put up in front the issue around Telkom Towers North, Annex Building, and as recent as May of 2021, when we received a letter from subs to prioritize the IT building, which was on the 6th level, we had to put it forward, which we are currently dealing with it at the moment as we speak, because of the needs of the client. If we move to slide number 9, slide number 9, honorable members, gives us a timeline, and as it has been introduced by the acting DG, that we really regret that this project has taken far too long. As we can see that the feasibility study of the planning took place in sometime in June of 2015, where the study was then concluded. Following that, the property was then transferred and registered under government in April of 2016 from Telkom. And then subsequent to that, the phasing that we had then initiated with subs commenced, where in the November of 2018, we commenced with the Telkom Towers North project as far as the service being registered, and the following aspects are now of the details around the project, whereby in 2018, the DBSA was appointed as the implementing agent, and the DBSA appointed PSPs. They appointed Led Africa in September of 2018 to do the planning and the designs. And then following the planning and the design phases, they appointed a contractor by the name of Ruacon in April of 2019. And the site was then handed over for this particular phase of Telkom Towers North in the June of 2018. And the site was then handed over then. The scope of work was in particular to address the issues that were identified in the feasibility study, whereby the age of the HVAC of the complex itself had to be looked at and considered for purpose of making sure that it's compliant. Then the scope of work also looked at the electrical compliance and all the mechanical fire-related compliance, which are statutory compliance required by the city. Those were also dealt with. And as part of the project progress, we had to ensure that plans were submitted accordingly due to process to the city of Tshwane, and also the city of Tshwane had to endorse the completion of these specific items in the scope of work before the practical completion would then be issued for occupation purposes. The project was initially planned to be completed in April of 2022. However, there were a number of delays that were experienced during the construction phase of this particular project. To highlight the challenges and the details have been outlined in the presentation, but I wish to highlight just two main challenges that were experienced. That there were a number of disruptions due to the community itself. That in the beginning of the project, when the project was handed over, the surrounding communities wanted to have participation within the project and wanted to have better understanding around the project and the employment strategy. Then there were disruptions by the PSC that was appointed to steer this particular project. And the main issues around the PSC were around the SMME subcontractings that were done and allocated for the project, where there were a number of work packages that were selected, and the PSC had an interest in the rates that were being allocated to the SMMEs, that they wanted the rates that should be escalated and to be up above the market rates. And we had a lot of interventions around this particular point, but it caused a lot of delays. And lastly, there were delays with respect to the COVID-19. Under the COVID-19, we all understand that the lockdown was just for a short period of time, about a month. But the impact to the value chain and the industry were that there was a shortage of steel through the industry because of the backlog in the ordering. And also there were some ceiling boards that had to be imported. And there were some logistical challenges at the harbor, which delayed the delivery of these specific components. However, these were resolved, and the project, when we came to the portfolio committee in May of last year, we were at 90%. And we had then indicated to the portfolio committee that we will then complete this particular project shortly after that. Indeed, the project was completed as practical completion was obtained on the October, and following that in December, the works completion was then obtained. I'm done with the timelines, but it gives an overview of what has been done so far with respect to the issue of the migrations. Honorable members, if we move to slide number 11, before I go into the specific details that are project specific, it is important that we elevate the entire planning process and the strategy around the migration. It's not only about this particular phase where construction activities and money has been spent, but the overall strategy and how it links. It is very important for us to contextualize it. So, honorable members, honorable chair, the migration into Telkom Towers North Annex Building and IT Building is the first fundamental approach that the two departments have taken. And the impact of that is that there are a number of leases that are linked to these migrations. We have Presidia, we have La Rochelle, we have Opera Plaza, the leases that are linked to these particular migrations of Telkom into the towers. And as we have indicated and outlined, that practical completion was obtained and delivered, and the work completion was also obtained and delivered in December of 2022 for the first tower. The other tower, which is the annex building, it had water ingress that were identified, and the water ingress has to be dealt with in order to make sure that when SAPS moves their documents into the cupboards that have been identified there, that we do not have any issues of damages. So it became very critical for us to then outline the issue of the water ingress. And the water ingress is as a result of joints that have reached their age due to wear and tear. It's joints that are seen on the walls where water seeps into the basement and along the walls, and those are being dealt with. In terms of the completion of that aspect, we're currently in that process where there's a planning and design aspects, and the implementation will then be realized in April of 2023. This is for the annex building where the issues of water ingress. And then we have the IT building, where we've got a request that was made on the 14th of May of 2021, where SAPS have requested us to fast track this particular building. It used to be in phase 6. Now we have to deal with it now. And with this particular IT building, we have also progressed quite quickly, given that we were given an instruction in May of 2021. We have done the designs and the planning aspects. We had anticipated that it would be already out to the market by now, but we were delayed by the Constitutional Court judgment, which came firstly sometime in February of this year. And then there were directions from National Treasury around the PPFA regulations that were issued in March. And there was also a reversal of the directions, where a communication was then issued on the 30th of May of 2021 to revert back to the 2017 PFA procurement regime. And unfortunately, that caused a bit of delay in ensuring that this project gets implemented quickly, the IT building. The completion of the implementation is anticipated to be in August of 2023. The next key item around these particular cluster of buildings is that as we speak, we have been in contact with SAPS. They have indicated to me that Opera Plaza, Presidia, and La Rochelle have been vacated, and we are in the process of handing over these particular buildings between SAPS and DPWI, so that we get to a point where the leases can be officially terminated. The savings that will be realized will be in the order of 3.4 billion rand. As honorable members note that we have indicated that the Telkom Towers North is available, and if we go and do an oversight, we will see that there are SAPS members occupying all the floors. And we are really pleased with that particular progress that has been made, where floors have been occupied from the 1st to the 25th floor accordingly. In terms of honorable members, the migration of the other towers, because in the complex we have quite a number of buildings. We have the Telkom Towers West, Telkom Towers East, which is the towers that are earmarked for the immediate future planning. On the 18th of May, both the departments of Public Works and SAPS engaged through the portfolio committee of SAPS. And part of that engagement was the matter of Telkom Towers. A commitment was then made that DPWI management will meet on the 10th of June to finalize the future migration of subs and the leases that will then be linked and terminated towards this particular migration. And subs and DPWI management are meeting on the 23rd of June in order to have concurrence of this migration plan. And the accounting officers of both the departments will then sign this off to ensure that we have a register of it, and we also monitor the milestones that have been committed to. I raised this particular point at this juncture because the future plans around Telkom Towers are dependent on financial viabilities, and the Department of Public Works has then sought a strategy to use the ROT model, which is the refurbish, operate and transfer model. With this model, it makes sure that we then bring forward all of these phases whereby we'll be using the private sector funding instead of using money from the fiscus, and then money from the private sector gets utilized to refurbish and operate and then transfer back to government the towers. And we are really in a process currently where the ROT within the department is being fast-tracked, that through the office of the accounting officer and the acting DG, that the implementation is then realized immediately after the sign-off of this migration on the 23rd of June of this year. Going back to the other aspects within the presentation, I wish to highlight on slide 21 the maintenance strategies that are taking place, that there are 3 pillars of maintenance strategies that are being embarked upon. We have which is the flagship, is the TFM approach of the precinct, whereby it is anticipated that implementation will start on or before October of 2022, where it will be a full-on end-to-end facilities management approach. Currently, we are managing the complex through day-to-day maintenance and also support from the Pretoria Regional Office's workshops accordingly. We also have a 1 million rand delegation assigned to clients to deal with issues of maintenance. Acting DG, I wish to pause here. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Bato. Honorable members, we have 2 presentations today. I don't know whether we allow the second presentation or we deal with Telkom Towers. We finish Telkom Towers and then we deal with, because they're not related. I can see hands. Honorable Jobo.
I propose to take the second one, so that we can discuss
we discuss once and for all.
Yes.
Are the hands also on the? Are they on Telkom Towers, or are they on this? On how we deal with this? I can see 3 hands. Honorable Hicklin.
Chair, with your indulgence, I think there are 2 completely divergent issues, and I would propose that we deal with them separately, Chair.
The challenge here, honorable members, is that are we going to manage time if we deal with them separately, knowing full well, I know that in COSA, I would say, that you can deliberate and discuss a report taking all the time. knowing that we ought to be out of this meeting by 12, and we also have a sitting at 3. So we need to seriously manage time if we're going to deal with these 2 reports and differently. We need to seriously manage time. But let me check, because for now I have 2 different views. Let me check, Honorable Suisa, on the on how we deal with the 2 reports, not on how we, not on your questions on the report.
Yeah, I'm on the reports, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think we must do both reports. And then you must use the same strategy that you used the last time to minimize time of speaking, because some of us will go for 15 minutes speaking. So we can deal with both reports, and then you apply the same strategy that you once used to say time allocation for each speaker is this, and then I think we'll be fine. We'll be able to finish before 12. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Suisa. Let me take, honorable members, that we deal with the second report, but we will allow, when we are discussing the reports, like maybe second round, third round, if possible, if we're not yet satisfied on what is presented to us. Let's deal it like that. Thank you, honorable members. Can we then, Acting DG, get the second report on the refurbishment of the Parliamentary Villages? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Without further delay, let me invite Chair, with your indulgence and permission, that Mr. Sazona brief us about that. With him would be our colleagues from the Cape Town Regional Office, who will also assist with inputs in this regard. So if Chair agrees, I will hand over to Mr. Sazona to make a presentation to the committee.
Good morning, Chair, the honorable members of the committee, the acting DG, and the colleagues from Prestige and Parliament. Chair, I won't get into, also for the sake of time, and allow members to be able to ask as much questions as possible on both presentations. The background, Chair, it's going to be quite brief when it goes on the background. All of us knows the origin of this project. However, Chair, is to note that this project is implemented by KUHA. We requested to assist us with about 6 projects, critical projects that we needed to implement, and this was one of the projects that we requested them to help us. Getting into the financials, Chair, of the project, before I get into the projects, Chair, just to give you the project requirements at the time, it's about 245 units that we had to refurbish. 120 of those units are in Goodwood, 56 of those projects are in Laboria Park, and 69 of those projects are in Pelican Park. Just to recap, Chair, the units that are on the prefabs and under the servitude, those ones were not part of this project, simply because we had another project that we have registered that was looking at the demolition and the rebuilding of those units. The general scope at a high level was the general building renovations, including paintings, and also the refurbishment of the kitchen and bathrooms, doing also some electrical and electronic services upgrade, and some structural work. Can I move there? On the financial implications of this project to date, Chair, we have spent about 50.4 million, breaking down, Chair, as follows. In the 2019-2020, we spent about 3.7 million, which was really only on the planning stage, which was the cost that we paid to the professional service team and the implementing agent. In 2020-2021, we spent about 10.5 million, which was only for a period of 6 months. And in 2021-2022, we spent about 36.1 million. Against now, we have now spent 0.4 against the budget of 105. Chair, again, just to reflect on this one, the cost of the project, Chair, was about 89 million. That was the contractor. And the difference between the 105 million and 89 million was the consulting, the professional team fees and the implementing agent. Can I move in? Progress to date, Chair, in terms of the project, again, to recap, Chair, during the first phase, we experienced some challenges. One, with the contractor not having security clearance to start on time. We have problems of the units not workmanship that was not to the satisfactory of the members that has to go back. We had another time, Chair, we took about 50 units, which we completed on the 11th of July under those difficult circumstances. Chair, you remember again, we requested that between July and August, we have a recess process where we started, Chair, to reevaluate our strategy and our working together with the service provider, where we also fast track some of the security clearance and to ensure that there is a quality work that is done. We then started again in August, and which we completed in September, which we completed in January, which is about 24 units, and 22 units were completed on the 6th of May. We experienced some kind of delays in that period as well, Chair, as we are experiencing some other delays now, which I will talk about them, Chair, when I'm talking on the challenges that we're experiencing. 18 units, we have commenced with those 18 units. We still require further 7 units, which members have not yet given us those units. Our anticipated date of completing Acacia Park before we move into Laboria Park was on the 15th of June. Chair, as I'm sitting, we are not sure we'll be able to make now this 15th June due to the challenges that I will be experiencing, Chair. Once we complete the Acacia Park, we will then be starting with the Laboria Park. These are a few of the challenges, Chair, that we are experiencing. One is still the issue of the security clearance. You will see, Chair, when I'm talking about the socio-economic report, that we have about 52 subcontractors that we have employed in this contract. For us to get those subcontractors being security cleared quicker by the SSA, it's a bit of a challenge, but we are working with SSA to try to fast track that. The service provider is making some follow-up almost on a daily basis. 2 other critical challenges, Chair, we have. One is units where we have relocated members to temporarily while we are fixing their units. Those members have not moved back into their units. That is one challenge. And the second one is members who are not moving out of the units for us to get those units relocated. Chair, I must mention that we did almost a similar presentation to the Chief Whips Forum about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And we had a support of the Chief Whips Forum to engage with the members, with their members in various, in Acacia Park. And we hope we have submitted the list to Mrs. Boroto. And we hope that with that intervention, we'll be able to deal with this issue. As I said, Chair, some of the solutions of these problems is that we have submitted a list to Ms. Boroto, who will be engaging with the Chief Whips Forums of different parties. And the contractor is constantly checking with SSA on the status. And Chair, to prepare for Laboria Park, we had a meeting with the Residents Committee where we put a plan and give the background of the project and also how we wanted to execute the project in Laboria Park as a next stage. We had tremendous support from the committee and their willingness to assist us to make the units available. We are working on a relocation plan, and once that relocation plan is complete, we will then communicate with the members in those committees. Chair, we thought let us bring this slide to the attention of the committee and the members on what we're doing on the socio-economic impact of this project in the bigger scheme of the challenges that our country faces. Currently, Chair, there are about 11 staff permanent members that the contractor has employed. We have subcontractors, staff, which includes labor, which is about 54 of that, the contractors' local labor, skills and unskilled, it's about 34. And the total number of labor employed in April was about 97. And we do know, Chair, that there is a fluctuation in the construction industry depending on the services that are required at the time. That's why you'll see these numbers not being consistent. But if we look at what has been employed since the start of the project, it's about 176 personnel that have been getting an opportunity of employment. In terms of the SMMEs, the project has about 22 small, medium, and micro enterprise. And as of April 2022, the amount of money paid to those SMMEs is about 16.8 million. We also have, Chair, included in part of this program, the Epwp National Youth Service, where we have taken youth into a training initiative, and about 17 of these youth have been enrolled with soft and hard skills, and about 15 of these youth have been employed in the technical and vocational training through the TVET colleges. Chair, these are images. It's unfortunate, Chair, we wanted to put more images, but because of space that the images take, we couldn't put more images. But Chair, just to give a glimpse of how it looks, this E41 looked like before the bathroom, and with the reconfiguration and refurbishment, on the right-hand side, you then have the E41 walk-in shower. And again, that is also through the request of that member. This has been a request that has been made to us over a period of time where other members were saying, rather, if we are unable to do the bathroom and the shower, rather do the walk-in shower, which is much more convenient than the bathroom. Because of limitation of space in other units, we are unable to do both. But where we can, we are able to do both of that. Chair, the project is at 47%, which is in line with the expenditure to date. And we are, as much as we have experienced some challenges, but we are still on par with what we set to achieve in terms of performance and time. Quality of work, Chair, has improved tremendously. In the meeting we had with the Chief Whips Forum about 2 or 3 weeks back, some of the members who have vacated and came back were very commendable about the quality of work that has been done. We want to thank the members for the patience that they have demonstrated to us over this period of inconvenience. Some of them have to go out for about 3 months from their units. However, Chair, we are trying our level best to ensure that we are delivering this project on time, and we also improve on the quality of work that we are doing. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Sazona. I now invite honorable members for comments, questions. Honorable Van Schalkwyk, Honorable Siwisa, Honorable Hicklin, Honorable Graham Mare, Honorable Shabalala, Honorable Mashele, Honorable Matebula. Let me repeat the order. Honorable Van Schalkwyk, Honorable Siwisa, Honorable Hicklin, Honorable Graham Mare, Honorable Shabalala, Honorable Mashele, Honorable Matebula, in that order. Please, honorable members, I think you can ask questions in both presentations. Yeah. If I see that you are going for 15 minutes, I will stop you. I think let's start by saying 5 for now. So when we go for the second round, it will be 2 minutes only. Over to you, members.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And thank you very much for the presentations from the department. Chairperson, I'm going to start by greeting once more the Honorable Deputy Minister, the members, as well as our staff and the departmental staff. Chair, when I look at the presentation of the Telkom Towers, I am extremely worried, Chairperson, because when we look at the original plan in terms of the 6 phases that needed to be completed by April 2022 as a projected completion date. And currently we see a completion only of phase 1, and the project already started way back. I'm extremely concerned, Chairperson. So my question would be, Chairperson, when looking at the timelines now, when do they envisage to do the completion of the whole 6 phases? And when looking at the delays, I am sure that there's a lot of budgets that's been affected. So would they say that the delays would mean that they need extra budget in terms of completing this whole project, or what are they going to do in terms of addressing that issue? Then, Chair, when they say they presented the slides on the floors occupied currently, then there are some floors 5 and 6 that are currently empty. So we don't want to see the Chairperson, because we know that even if it's within a specific building, we know that there might be some problems that might arise through that emptiness of those buildings. So if those floors, can they please give a clarification in terms of that? Then they are talking about future plans dependent on financial viabilities, and they need money from the private sector. Can we get a clear indication also, Chairperson, on how they're going to manage that and finalize that? Because we need to see at least, I'm a little bit fine with the fact that there are continuous engagements between the 2 departments, but we need to see that engagements and that boardroom talks to ensure that the practicalities are being addressed. So, Chairperson, I want to know what is the current engagements in terms of to secure funding with the private sector. Then, Chairperson, when I look at the issue of the Parliamentary Villages, I am glad, firstly, that as a recipient of the first phase, Chairperson, we did indicate that the 50 units that they planned per phase is too much. And during the first phase, we indicated that some of us were moved from went to the flats for more than a year. So at least they listened to us when they lowered that number of the refurbishment in the next phases. But when we look at the amount, Chairperson, of the 50 million currently being spent against the 47% progress, and I would like to know, Chairperson, do they envisage that they might overspend on the budget, or do they see that, or do they think that they would be in line with in terms of the budget? So, Chairperson, sorry for that. I'm just worrying, Chairperson, in terms of the preferences of some individuals in terms of what they want, like the baths versus the showers. Can they give an indication of how many units are affected by this personal preferences and how that would impact in future, because we know it's not individuals' own properties that we are talking about. Then, Chairperson, when we look at the prefabs, we know that it's not part of this project. So what is the outlook in terms of the prefabs? How are they going to deal with it in terms of only also addressing that as a matter of urgency? And then, Chairperson, I would like to know that in terms of alternative building methods, do they consider it in terms of fast tracking the refurbishment or the establishment of new buildings instead of the prefabs? Then, Chairperson, in terms of the intercom system, I want to know if that's also part of this project and how are they dealing with it. Then, Chairperson, the costs mentioned in the presentation are far too broad and not broken into subsets that provide detail to check on value for money in terms of our oversight role. So I also want to know which PSPs are responsible for which category of works, which of the PSPs are the main contractors, which are subcontractors, what are the grading of those PSPs, and at which category of CIDB grading are PSPs, these PSPs. Chairperson, also in terms of the socio-economic report, I want to know, Chair, as much as we value the impact in terms of addressing unemployment, even though it's in small numbers, we know that we are valuing it, but we need to know what is the BBBEE certification in terms of the contractors. And also, Chairperson, in terms of those people, especially Epwp people that's been used, are they going to, we know it's a transfer of skills, but would that mean then that those individuals also receive certifications in terms of further being employable? I think I'll pause there, Chair, to allow others also to participate. Thank you very much.
I was about to ask you to please pause. Honourable members, we will have the second round for questions. Please ensure that we do have the time that the department can respond. Honourable Siwisa.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, can I keep my video off? I'm worried about network where I am. Chair, I'm going to start with the Telkom Towers. I want to know what are the financial implications in the whole process whereby they are busy upgrading or refurbishing Telkom Towers. It's still under construction after such a long time. And at the same time, they have to pay for rentals where subs is occupying buildings that they are utilizing. And I want to find out, is the delay because of the contractor or because of the department? Because, Chair, when I listened to the presentation that has been done, there was a timeline as to what needs to be done when. So I also need to find out when these timelines were done, was there a meeting between the department and subs so that they can outline what is their priority? Because now they had to deviate because of subs needed a certain building to be finished at a certain time and it was delayed because now they had to wait for the Constitutional Court outcome as to whether they can do that or not. And then one of the reasons that I've picked up in all of the projects, all of them, not only Telkom Towers, all of the projects, you'd find that there's always disruption caused by the public. And I want to ask a question: that was the public participation whereby the public was informed that this is the project that's going to happen. There is an opening for employment, even if it's temporary employment, where the people around informed as to what's going to happen, when is it going to happen, how much is the budget, in order to avoid delays that are being caused by public disruption. And we are always told about the lockdown and COVID, and because already when we went there in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, already the project was already on delay. There was the project was not where it was supposed to be. And now we are going to be told about 3 months of lockdown. There was no material that was found and all of those things, because we are talking about material that's expiring after 50 or 60 years. So why did the contractor not buy in bulk and be able to move on? And then when you come to the private sector, I think Honorable Van Schalkwyk has pitched on that. But can they specify when they say private sector, what do they mean? Who are they referring to? And how much are they expecting from the private sector? They spoke about the 1 million rents. From where is the 1 million rents? Coming to the parliamentary villages, I thought that the project was continuous. All the villages are going to be done at the same time because the budget is out. So what are the reasons that inform that the project must be taken one village at a time? Because whether you do it continuous or you do it piece by piece, the amount is still going to be the same. And it's also going to promote that more people can be employed, and then the project can be finished on time in all 3 villages without having to say this one is priority and the other one is not priority. Some members are not satisfied, unfortunately, about the refurbishments that they saw in their houses. Some of them have indicated that it's actually wasteful expenditure, whereby very usable cabinets were removed. They were in good conditions and they were replaced. What are the reasons for replacing something that can still be utilized? And then coming to when we started the thing of parliamentary villages and people being moved out, we were told that, I don't know what's the correct word to use, but I would say, I would refer to it as a temporary structure, the houses that some of us are staying in. We were told those houses are going to be demolished. And then at a later stage, we were told that those with solid bricks are going to be refurbished. And how much is being spent in these houses that were originally supposed to have been demolished? How much are being spent when it comes to maintenance? I'm going to make an example about the house where I'm staying. It had to, every time the toilet is blocked or the toilet is leaking, the other day they had to replace the geyser. What were the reasons to inform that the houses must be given a facelift? Because you can't give a car a facelift whereby the engine is not working. So for now, those are my only questions, Chair. I'll wait for the response and maybe go for a second bite.
Thank you, Honorable Suisa. Honorable Hicklin.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for the presentations. Starting with Telcom Towers, I saw something that really touched on the nerve for me of what is lacking in both the projects relating to the Telcom Towers and relating to the Parliamentary Villages. And it was a mnemonic TFM, Total Facilities Management. And I think that's one of the things that's very lacking in the Department of Public Works. We do not have a total facilities management concept that runs through any of the projects. If we go back to the BDO report, one of the reasons that the report was commissioned was because of complete and utter inability to look at a project from beginning to end and know how long, or being able to estimate how long a project was going to take. And therefore we have these cost estimates that go completely off the wall. If you have a look at how much the overrun has been on the Telcom Towers, it runs to billions of rands because of an inability either by the contractor or by the DPWI to estimate correctly on how long a project is going to take. Exactly the same is happening with the facilities, the management of the refurbishments in the parliamentary villages. And that comes down to appropriate facilities management, both of the Telkom Towers and of the refurbishments in the parliamentary villages. And the cost overruns on the Telkom Towers is linked to this ridiculous amount of money that we're paying on leasing other buildings, while we are totally unable to fix the Telkom Towers within the specified time of the contracts. And I totally share what Honourable Sharon van Schalkwyk was saying about we were given a specified time in which the contract was going to be run from 2015 to 2016 when the contract was signed, 2018 when the site handover took over, 2019 when the contractor was appointed. These are years. They are not months or weeks. They are years between the time when a contract is signed and a contractor is actually appointed. And this leads to contract overruns and money that is just washed down a drain. We were told that we could go and do an oversight, and I'm imploring you, Chair, can we please go and do an oversight? We are being told we can go and do an oversight on Telkom Towers North. Well, let's go and do that oversight on Telkom Towers North, because I think that was the building that we saw in 2019 when we first came into office. And it was just a shell with absolutely nothing to see. We are supposed to have a completely six phases were supposed to have been ready by now. I'd like to go and see that Telkom Towers North to see actually how far it is, because it's great on paper, but I'd actually like to compare the photographs that I took in 2019 with my own eyes and see how different it is now. Turning to Acacia Park, when you say that you're still battling to get security clearance on many of the contractors, I have a tremendous amount of trouble understanding this. You are going to have a facilities management contract that runs out at the end of 2019 or 2020. You must have an idea that you're going to have to get new contractors to come in. You've got a year in which to call for those contracts. So start early, get your ducks in a row, and then get your security clearances for the 6 months leading up to the awarding of that contract. It cannot be so difficult for you to get clearances for the people who are going to be working, because you know you're going to be awarding the contract to Mary Jane's construction company. Therefore, you get your contract workers lined up in advance. So I have tremendous problems being unable to understand why you can't get these facilities management contracts sorted and therefore the security clearance sorted. And these directly impact the kind of services that we have in the parliamentary villages that we are currently facing. The horticultural side, for example, let alone the refurbishment. The parliamentary villages look dreadful because we don't have workers, contract workers, who are on site because they haven't got security clearance. Mr. Sazona, you know that so many of the prefab buildings that are in Acacia Park, as an example, are too close to the power lines. That is injurious to the health of the parliamentary members who are living in the houses close to those lines. These are the first houses that should have been demolished before you looked at refurbishing the brick structures down in the E block. And yet we've had a complete reversal of what's actually happened in the parliamentary villages. I think that we haven't looked at it correctly. I'll go to the second bite. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can I close my video?
Okay, in terms of you were supposed to be after Honorable Graham, but you can start if Honorable Graham won't have a challenge.
I'm sorry. My apologies, Chairperson.
Okay, you
sorry.
can. Honorable Graham,
okay.
you don't have a challenge, Nick? Honorable Graham,
No problem, Chair.
okay. Then continue,
sorry
Honorable
about that.
Shabalala. Honorable Shabalala, continue. Yes.
Thank you, Chairperson. I wish to appreciate the two presentations. Safe to say that sometimes it's a failure or it's a futile exercise when we do the oversight, but we cannot show of it. The delay with the Telcom Towers, I think I will join my other colleagues on knowing how much exactly are we talking about in terms of the overrun, and who is cushioning the contractors' overheads here. The issue of the SAPS, the department, and the ultimate or continuous demands, I am not sure as to what happened during the design stage, because I would have thought that they would have shared whatever in the floor plan so that nothing comes in bits and pieces from the side of the SEPs. The time span that has been spent on this project, I'm just thinking if this was a new building, it would have been complete by now. If this was the building that was started from the scratch. The issue on both presentation, Chair, I don't seem to get the sense of where is the JV? Are we talking only about subcontractors, subcontractors only? I don't seem to find anything about the JV. I'm saying this because I know that in one of the national departments here in KZN, one of the agents, I know that they have made it an obligation to say, if you want to do the job with us, come with the JV agreement that is already in place, then we can give you an opportunity. Because if you're talking about the subcontractors, they are at the mercy of the main contractor. We don't even know, for starters, how much are they making? Are they able to satisfy the labor that they employ as well? I also not seem to get the sense or indication about the graduate engineer program on both this, because I think because of the problem that we have with the engineers not registered, etc. How are you cushioning them in order for them to get the registration, in order for them to get the necessary expertise on site? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Shabalala. You are the only one so far who has not exceeded the 5 minutes. Honorable Graham Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Please forgive me. I am going to keep my camera off. Chairperson, just with respect to the first presentation, I've just got a couple of questions. On the slide where they listed the various projects and the phases that they're going through. Under phase 6, they've got Somerset House, and then they've got the central building. Next to that, in terms of the grade or the assessment that they've done on it, it said condemned. Now, I'm curious as to why that remains on the phase if it is condemned, and what they plan to do with respect to this building that is condemned. Are they going to knock it down? Because if it's condemned, then it's beyond repair. So I'm just curious as to what will happen with that building. So that's the central building. Then with respect to the final account, the Auditor General flagged Telkom Towers last year in the AFS and listed that an amount of 872 million rand had already been incurred by the Telkom Towers project, and obviously raised concerns with respect to that. Today, we've been told that the final account so far has been 159 million rand. Now, there's a substantial difference, and I do understand that some of the 872 million are additional costs that have been incurred, such as security, etc. But 600 odd million is a massive, 700 odd million is actually a massive difference between 159 million and 872 million. So I imagine that part of that is for phase one, obviously, and the 159 is phase one. But I'd like to know where the balance of that money has gone. And then with respect to the ROTP model that they're looking at to fast track, I don't understand why this is being used as a pilot project, because if this project has been signed off on and agreed to, there should already be funding mechanisms in place to cover the cost of this, or it should have been budgeted for already, because it's not like this happened last week and suddenly they're stuck with a massive building that they've got to do and aren't quite sure where they're going to fund it from. So I'm curious as to why we're using the ROT model for this project particularly, because it is on behalf of a client project. To me, the ROT model should be used for buildings where nobody's using them at the moment. It's a building that we can possibly lease. So there are 2,029 buildings that are unoccupied. Surely that's where we should be using the ROT model, so that we can refurbish those buildings and start generating income or providing those buildings to people that need them. So what I wanted to know as well is, with respect to this ROT model that they're looking to use to fast track and use private sector funding, how is this going to happen in terms of a procurement? What would the procurement procedures be around a project like this? And are there, in terms of the PPPFA and other funding legislation, financial legislation, are there mechanisms in place in the current legislation that we have that provide for something like this? I understand it is a public-private partnership, but I'm just concerned because we're doing this on behalf of a client already. DBSA is an implementing agent. DBSA is a facilities management organization. Why then are we looking at going to an alternative mechanism for this? Then also with respect to the total financial TFM, the total facilities management, is there still a ceiling with respect to that, with respect to day-to-day maintenance, which is normally 100,000, whereafter it becomes a repair and refurbishment program? Will both of those programs fall under the TFM? In other words, will that facilities management body be responsible both for day-to-day maintenance and repair and refurbishment that exceed the maintenance threshold? And how will the ROTP play into this? In other words, if you've got a total facilities management project in place over the whole of Telkom Towers because of the investment, and I think that was what you said in the slide, then how would the ROT work? Because the facilities management follows from the ROT. How would that then work? Would you have a separate one just for that building that has been included in the ROT project? And then with respect to the Parliamentary Villages, I agree with what my colleagues have said with respect to the consultants. Are we getting value for money? I'm deeply concerned that we are spending an inordinate amount of money on consultants. And if you look at the BDO report and you look at this feedback now, we've got massive extensions of time. We've got project overruns, and yet we're paying consultants that should be managing these processes. We need to determine what we are paying our consultants, what we're paying them for, and whether or not we are getting value for money in terms of the way our projects are being handled. And then just finally on the repairs and maintenance that are being undertaken at Acacia Park in particular, first of all, some of my colleagues have commented that they're very happy with the work that has been done. Their places look very, very nice. But one of our colleagues has raised an issue whereby he's saying there are minor issues on his house. And the department has come along and said, no, we need to refurbish. And he's saying you don't need to refurbish. You need to fix one little thing here, maybe scrape it down and paint it. but they want to do a whole refurbishment. So are we monitoring what sort of work is being done by the contractors, and that we are not spending money unnecessarily on projects that shouldn't be happening? And finally, what happens to the stuff that you remove from the houses that are being refurbished? So where they take out curtains and put in blinds, what is happening to them? We've got these magnificent silk curtains in our houses. Where are those going? What happens when there's one cracked tile and they replace an entire floor? What happens to the tiles that they take out? So I'd like to know whether or not, again, we're not spending money unnecessarily on replacing things that don't need to be replaced. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mare. Honorable Mashele, followed by Honorable Matebula.
Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to yourself, my colleagues, the support staff of the Portfolio Committee, PM, and your entourage. Chair, I think my colleagues have covered some of the issues that I wanted to get into, but safe to say, Chair, let me start with the issue of the Telcom Towers. One is tempted to ask whether the department does get value for the money that they spend in this refurbishment. Do you think, as the department, your processes are effective? Can you compete in the market world in the manner at which you conduct your business? I'm raising this, Chair, because we are given a process flow from 2015 up to today, 7 years later. We're still talking about the very same item. That is, conception started in 2015. The University of Mpumalanga, Chair, if I can give you an example, was established in 2014 with just 2 blocks. In 2019, when I became a student, and when it was established in 2014 with the 2 blocks, it had 169 students. In 2014, when I joined, it had more than 4,000 students and a fully fledged university. At a particular time in 2018, they were opening a building, a new building, whether it was a library, a rest, whatever. And that happened in about 3 years. Now, when you look at the department to refurbish a building, you talk about 7 years. Had we used the department to build the University of Mpumalanga, it would be at a conceptualization stage at this point. So I'm saying, Chair, the department should be able to pull up their socks such that they are able to assist government in terms of housing it. Otherwise, if they fail, they should be able to go out and get the private sector to help. I don't want to dwell much on the issue of the Parliamentary Village, Chair, but I think the department should move from a stage where it gives excuses every day. For example, Chair, when you look at, we're told that they'll start with Laboria once they're done with Acacia Park. And from where we're seated in Acacia Park, there's about 7 units which the owners cannot move such that they start. Why do you want to delay here when you can go next door and start working such that these things goes parallel? You, in the presentation somewhere there, were told of the challenges. Some of it is the security clearance. How long does it take to get the security clearance? Why are you not coming here to give us a progress to say, no, we had the challenge with security clearance, but this is what we've done. We spoke with the police, we're able to fast track the process. And where you are failing, why don't we find a way of utilizing the systems that we have to speed up the process. You had planned, part of it is that you have planned to complete on the 15th. We are sitting today, you see that you cannot complete. You don't want to come out and admit that we're not going to complete and give probably a possible date. So you want us to ask you to say, since we have planned to complete this project on the 15th of June, and as we sit here, the 15th is next week, and clearly you know you're not going to. You just want to put it in a romantic way that we must see that you're not, and such that we can ask a question. I don't think it's fair. As you prepare this presentation, if you know what you want to do, convince us, come to us and say to us, yes, indeed, wanted to complete on the 15th and it's not possible. This is the new revised date. So to me, we are not showing any commitment of agency in the matter. Chair, I think let me stop there because I realize you come back to such that one can, I'll come back on the second round. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mashale and Honorable Matebula.
Thank you very much, Chair. My greetings to you and the staff, and as well as the members, the honorable members. Chair, well, mine is only two things. I have been covered by my colleagues in most of the things that I intended to field questions on or to pose questions on. Chair, I see here that the initial amount for Telkom Towers was in a region of 144 million. And that was an estimation. But then it went up to 159 million, of which the 144 million was an estimation, as I said. I'm not so sure reason was given, but I think it's not sufficient. I would want or wish the presenter to kind of try and cover other reasons as to why it went to 159 million. And there's one amazing thing, Chair, that I have realized, especially in the public sector, that they started by making estimations. But in my experience working with the public sector, I have realized that in most cases, if not all, in all cases, it doesn't happen that the estimation is said to have been overestimated. All the time is underestimated. So I'm not surprised when you see 144 million, and after then they have conducted, assessments, further assessments, then it goes up instead of going down. And when it comes to the houses, especially in Acacia Park, I can't agree more with my colleagues who say some of the improvements that were made were kind of improvements that we didn't need. It was in actual fact a waste of money. Well, I just want to make an example of the house that I occupy. The only thing that they did, it was to, one thing that I picked up like on the floor, which for which I think it was not necessary. The tiles in the whole house, they are like cream white. They changed in the kitchen one to be, gray. When the cream white color had no problem at all. It was a tile which was of a quality, but they had to change that. For me, it didn't make a sense. And lastly, Chair, I see the presenter speaks of people who have been empowered, sectors in our population that have been empowered. Specifically, he referred to the youth. But I haven't seen that as being subcontractors, the employees who are working on these 3 villages, empowerment of women and people who are living with disability. Can we be showered with that information so that we are able to understand where, in future, can we assist in terms of assisting other groupings in our society by empowering them if in this instance we're not empowered. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Matebula. You are also, like Honorable Shabalala, you presented your questions and comments within that allocated 5 minutes, than all other members. Acting DG and your team, there are 2 issues that I would like to comment on. One, the issue of Telkom Towers. The report that was given, it indicates that this project started in 2015, and now we are in 2022. Only 1 tower has been finished in 7 years. Serious escalating costs. I think DG, let's agree on this one. The department has failed South African people. Whether there is a collusion with the department and subs, whatever, so that they continue renting, but you are failing South African people. The Honorable Prime Minister said that a new project could have been started and finished. Honorable Mashele indicated that a university was built within that time and finished. And it's a top of the range university. And this time, it's not a new building. It's an old building that needs to be refurbished. But only one part of it is finished in 7 years. So it means for these 4 towers, we need 28 years. If it takes 7 years to finish 1 tower, this is bad. This is seriously bad at the expense of the public purse. It is seriously bad. Yes, you are saying now there is you are, in fact, what you were presenting to me, I saw it as part of the private sector funding, that refurbish, operate, and transfer model. But what I'm worried about is that these buildings are supposed to be the headquarters for SAPS. So if you are then saying that you will have a partnership with the private sector for a department that also needs a serious SAPS is not just like any other department. You would need a lot of, whether you screen even that private partner that you'll be dealing with, because there's a lot if you are talking about a headquarters of SAPS. So I don't know how you're going to deal with that, but I believe in Toba you will do it. But the next 21 years for you to finish, it's not on. If you take 7 years to finish 1 town. On the issue of parliamentary refurbishments, I am also not happy. I think DJ, Mr. Sazona, In Acacia Park, only in Acacia Park, you have prefabs. And these prefabs, they have a roof of asbestos. Asbestos that health-wise is not allowed to be used. There have been projects by government to ensure that it is removed in all, even in housing, in all. But where the members, the lawmakers are staying, Public Works is letting them stay in houses that have a roof made of asbestos. Even in this report, there's nothing that is talking about the demolishing of the prefabs. There is no even saying that the project that we have been always hammering on as this committee, there is nothing in the report that says that project will start at this time. We are estimating that at least by June, okay, it's June now, at least by December 2022, we would have done the first phase of that project. There's nothing in the report that talks about that. So it then shows again that, I don't know, if I may be very, very harsh, it means you don't care about the lives of those that are staying in those units. Maybe it would be better if then those people that are staying in those units, those that have stayed previously, then would come and then claim monies from government. Then maybe that's when you will then wake up and say, hey, this project is really necessary, more than the other projects that you have done. And it also shows that within this term, that won't be done. I am just not happy about that one. I think you need to really prioritize the issue of demolishing the units that have asbestos roof. Not to put paint, but demolish those units. Thank you. Over to you, DG and your team.
Chairperson, thank you very much. And thanks to the honorable members for the questions that they have raised. Before I allow my colleagues to respond to some of the questions, allow me, Chair, just to respond to a few of the questions that have been posed. Let me start first with Telcom Towers and address some of the key matters that have been raised. The first one, Chair, let me start where you left off with your assertion that clearly we have failed on this program in as far as the duration of time it has taken us, and also the cost overruns that have impacted on this project since inception and its conceptualization in 2015 to where the tower, the first one, was completed by April. Chair, we will not beat about the bush. I think it's only correct that we accept. If we do not accept that, then we would not be prepared to correct what is fundamentally wrong and to attend to that. So with that, Chair, I need to highlight also that we do not intend that the rest of the projects in terms of the cluster and buildings within that cluster at the Telkom Towers, that they would all take the same duration for purposes of going forward. Clearly, we have an obligation. We have reviewed this ourselves, have seen that we had lacked capacity from word-go after the design process was done in terms of the refurbishment in phase one. Chair, you would recall that the department accepted that it did not have the capacity to manage this. We reached out to a state entity we thought had the capacity to be able to run the program within budget and on time. And the Development Bank of Southern Africa, DBSA, was appointed as an implementing agent on our behalf to bring the capacity we had correctly identified we did not have to manage the project. As the chair is aware, there were delays, there were challenges with the program. And you may now be aware that we are now looking in terms of the ROT model to the private sector. The advantage of such a model of a PPP would afford us the opportunity that whoever enters and is appointed to run the ROT, they would bring their own team. We would hold them in terms of the agreement and contract. We would agree with them with the clear expectation, Chairperson, that they meet those deadlines and live within the budget that we have provided. Chair, in the nature of the construction industry, as the chair may be aware, and also the South African market in the main, and this is what we are now tracking, the quarterly survey done by the Statistics South Africa in terms of the construction and property index. In that index, we look at several of the sub-indices, and we look at what is being tracked, and we also look at the volatility of price of key inputs in construction, making the work of quantity surveyors quite a nightmare in our space. But we do admit, and I think I want to immediately accept what has been raised and what even Mr. Honorable Member Mashele had raised in this regard, and to indicate that, no, indeed, the prices hardly ever go down. They always fluctuate and go higher. And this is a challenge of having to place your faith in what the quantity surveyor has done, and the costings that we normally do attach to programs are what professional companies have actually provided to us as a basis for which budgets are sourced and timelines are looked at, and several factors are put into being and factored in. However, with poor project management, which we see it as an Achilles heel with us, is that those are not mitigated very well, and our projects always go beyond the schedule, and with it, the cost overruns become inevitable. So we are alive to that, and that's why we have decided that amidst all the challenges, and I want to also indicate that I know that Honorable Graham Murray has pointed out to the fact that this project, when we conceptualized it, certainly there should have been a budget allocation for it, and there should have been approval of budgets attached to the project. In the real sense, in as far as this is concerned, I agree with her, and with a viewpoint that says, because this is done for a standing government department, a land department that will utilize this. The idea really has always been that subs would seek to finance this refurbishments of the Telcom Towers with the funding that is now currently dedicated towards paying rentals in private buildings where they are, and that with the diversion of these resources, they would then be in a better position to finance the further works in other phases. I must hasten to indicate that the migration plan has not yet been signed by subs, which indicates when we would move from which building to which of the available buildings in the complex, and also in terms of prioritization of what is to be done first. We have a scheduled meeting now, and we are driving this with greater impetus. And we have scheduled meeting on the 23rd, at which we believe after that meeting, the migration plan must be signed. This will also free subs to be in a position to commit resources And such committal of resources is what is necessary for us to begin and go forward in terms of our contracting arrangements to ensure that service providers provide work. In this regard, Honorable Mare wants to know, how are we going to make sure that the interface between the total facilities managers that are available now at the Telkom Tower 1 and vis-a-vis the ROT, that in itself, it has an inbuilt total facilities management package. And what then do you do in those instances? I think the phase-out approach is what we will apply for the rest of the other buildings that are brought into the complex. They would come with the TFM as part of the operate part of the scheme. And ultimately, when the contract for the TFM expires at the Telkom Towers North, being the phase 1, and that too is handed over for ROT with the rest of what follows suit. And I think that with that phased out approach and with the incorporation of all buildings within the clusters in the ROT in the ultimate, and will assist with what we are trying to achieve in this regard. I must also ask them to indicate the fact that we are cognizant that the private sector appears to have better capacity and better project management abilities than us. And in so saying, I also wish to concede to what has been raised by Honorable Mashele. And his question was quite pointed to say that is the department really competitive market-wise, and his analogy of the building of a university in Mpumalanga is truly taken to heart. And I must indicate that we do concede that we do not think that we're in a shape to be that competitive. And it is for this reason we are looking at these alternative models that will involve and source in the capacity where it exists. And also more importantly, to breach the Chinese wall and the refrain that has always been there on the involvement of the private sector in as far as our immovable assets. And I think that we have breached that barrier. We are now clear that this is where we should be going with this. And we are also quite clear that the concept has now been presented before the retreated cabinet by our minister. It has been well received and well accepted. Work has been done in this regard, and we are looking honestly at the rollout of this within the current financial year, and we are looking at a clear program with the National Treasury. We have a scheduled meeting with them as well to finalize. We have been in talks with them about this specific thing. We have agreed that the utilization of Regulation 16, Honorable Graham Mare, is the best route for this, and that the framework is already covered, and that also even further than that, that our own supply chain policy as a department must now explain, because there's a clause in the regulations that says that the accounting officer, where it is impractical to procure via normal processes, he may procure by other means. So the letter we have received from the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer's advice guides us to say that our departmental policy must explain what this other means would look like, and that they would give us, if they agree, their concurrence with what our policy would be saying, and that is what we will then follow henceforth. And I think that from now, we are in the process of amending our policy to cover the ROT program. We have finalized the concept note. It has been approved, and we are now at a stage where we are looking at rollout and implementation. I must now address, Chairperson, the issue pertaining to the parliamentary villages, and wish to indicate that when the original idea and concept of the refurbishments needed to take place, the concept was ventilated, and together with the management of Parliament consultations ensued in this regard, including the nature of the refurbishments that needed to be done in the parliamentary villages. So this as a concept is a concept that was already accepted. There was also a view that said that the state of the houses and of members were not necessarily the same, and therefore perhaps a differentiated approach could be undertaken. However, this at the time of the consultation was not seen as a viable option because it was felt that we will put other members in much more modernized facilities than where others are placed in what now would look like quite dated houses. And we already know the competition for allocation of houses, particularly for MPs and also for sessional officials, where all the time, because the format and the layout of all of the properties are not necessarily the same, and other members express preference for different type of things and so on. And we had sought to bring some degree of uniformity in approach and in terms of finishings and appliances and everything that's been provided. So to that extent, I think this has been the motivation of how we have arrived at where we are, where you find that we also have got to refurbish and upgrade. The concerns raised about where refurbishments are not necessary, but only minor repairs needs to be done. I think that we should look at, and I think that it's what I will sit down with the team and have a review of the extent to which this is an issue. And this would also compel me to lead this team to go on a site visit to all of these villages to see where this is indicative that we may be wasting money. If that is the case, honorable members, I can give the assurance that the idea would be to stem that off immediate and to stop that from occurring. On the issue of over expenditure, I think I'm going to ask DDG Mokhoto to respond to that matter. But of import is that is the question raised by Honorable Van Schalkwyk of whether we envisage further over expenditure on this. And we think that on the ROT, the risks shift significantly to the private partner who runs the project. We have to give them the latitude to do what is necessary and to run and operate it and to refurbish it themselves at own cost. And therefore, if there are cost overruns, I believe it will be for the account of the operator. And accordingly, in this regard, we then do not envisage any further over expenditures if we go on the ROT model for Telkom Towers, and if we are supported to go in that regard. But in as far as are we envisaging over expenditure for the parliamentary villages, I think that Honorable Van Schalkwyk, I will ask that my colleague, Mr. Sazona, perhaps he should flight again the slide that indicates where in expenditure we are. Right now, we aren't in a position where we are saying on the project we are overspending. However, I think he needs to give that assurance that there would not be over expenditure going forward. Let me now indicate that I've noted what Honorable Hicklin has raised about the irritations of not maintaining the yards and the landscaping and everything related thereto, and what we need to deal with of immediate. But I believe I've answered her concerns in as far as our inability to really plan projects from start to finish, and for our inability to put all our ducks in a row. I think it's what we have acknowledged, and that's why we are employing the ROT as an effective model in the interim period while we address our capacity challenges. And I think that we are looking more and more at the idea of insourcing capacity than actually attempting to build that capacity ourselves, because over the years it has proven that it is becoming quite an elusive concept based on the nature of the skills required by a department of our nature, and also looking at what the public service and the public purse can actually afford. So we normally are not able to attract the best of the best within the market, and this makes our competitiveness within the market also quite suspect. If you allow me, Chair, I will now hand over to my colleague Batumohotu to answer some of the other questions, and then to allow Mr. Sazona also to answer what I have not covered in terms of the changes that have been made in as far as this is concerned.
Thank you, Acting DG. With respect to the concerns raised around the particular phases, which are the 6 phases, and one wants to start off by perhaps giving a high view outline of what was initially intended and what then didn't transpire according to the original plan. In terms of the project life cycle modeling, the investment analysis was then conducted on these particular complexes, and the feasibility study was then done at sometime in 2015. However, between the 2015 and when the commencement of works on the first phase, there was a time gap where there were no real activities as far as the construction is concerned. And during that particular time of the feasibility study, the attributed cost that Honorable Graham Murray raised around the Auditor General then comes into play, where the facility was then purchased, and that information is shown in our slide number 7 in detail. That when the project then commenced, it was only in April of 2019, and then we are accounting for that particular cost of 159, as outlined by Honorable Matebula, of the final account. And as the acting DG had then articulated, that the cost between the 159 and the initial cost estimation that we normally receive by our quantity surveyors during planning, and as a result of the delays incurred during the construction phase, and the time factor of P's and G's and other associated costs, that's why we have the differential between the 144, which was the planning, and the 159, which was in the final account. And then when we then outline in relation to that, the associated timelines was that the phase 1 was delivered December 2021. And then the next associated buildings, example, the IT buildings, we then committed on the August 2023. And the future migrations are then as a result of the ROT strategy, and the delivery of that and the financial modeling is now in play as far as the ROT is concerned, and the delivery model around the ROT. Then there was a concern that was raised around the issue of public disruptions in project, as it was outlined by honorable members, that the department has taken a particular posture where a social facilitation framework has been developed, and this has been taken through a number of platforms and committees for endorsement. We're at a point where we're in a piloting a phase 4 for the social facilitation component of the department, and it will then be rolled out across all of our projects after the piloting phase. The importance aspect about this is to curb the issues around communities where they have a desire to know about the projects. We go in early, we engage the communities about the plans that we have and the participation levels that we anticipate the communities will have. Also, including the issues around the SMMEs and the business forums will also be socialized before we go in as the contractors per se. Honorable Shabalala highlighted some concerns around empowerment, particularly of young engineers, and we wish to also report to honorable members that this is also an element that is close to our heart. In the department, we have a program that we've embarked upon last year. We had young professionals running about 66 projects, which they have done well through those projects. They've gained a lot of experience. A majority of them have been registered professionally. We even find that even companies in the private sector poach our newly registered professionals, and then they go and work for them, implying that the effort that we are putting in as far as the competency levels, they are acceptable, and it's being recognized by the market itself. Also on the Telkom Towers, we are utilizing our in-house professionals. They're guided by this more senior registered engineers to address the issues of the designs and to prepare the tender documentation accordingly. Through that, we are seeing a lot of growth in our young professional program through the exposure that we are giving them. There was also a concern around the agreements in relation to perhaps the overall agreement between a main contractor and a JV and perhaps subcontracting, that when a tender is put together, generally the JV agreements are then formulated at that particular point for different strategies that a particular contractor may have. One of them may be the grading that's required for a particular project may be high for a grade 8, and 2 grade 8s may team together as a JV to form a grade 9. And those JVs are accepted by our procurement regime. And what we then find in this particular project of Telkom Towers, that we only had a main contractor, and we had a number of domestic subcontractors that were then employed. The agreements are not necessarily that of a JV, but there are agreements in place between the main contractor and their subcontractors accordingly. There was also a concern around the central building, which is condemned. We wish to highlight that indeed it's correct. During the investment analysis that was done in 2015, it was then identified that the central building is in a bad condition, therefore cannot be utilized. At this particular point, we highlight that we do not intend on doing any particular work. We have not received any instructions around the central building by subs in terms of how it needs to be dealt with. And it's still there. We still show it as part of our original assessments and the condition that we found it to be. Maybe I can pause here, Acting DG. I can take more questions if they come.
Thank you very much, Honorable DG. If I may also, on the Parliamentary Villages, I will start with the first question that the DG has also alluded to, which was raised by Honorable Siwisa, Honorable Graham Marie, and Honorable Matebula on the changing of things that don't need to be changed, and particularly issues were been raised on issues of tiles. I just want to remind members that during the first phase of this project, when we have the 50 houses, one of the complaints that members who were going back to their houses raised was that in some of the units we were changing just one tile, and which that now doesn't talk to the other tiles that are in the house. And upon investigation of some of these issues is that some of these tiles were installed about 10 years ago, and you can't get the same similar tile. So then that necessitates that the contractor has to change the entire floor so that the tiles can be the same tiles. So we are trying our level best. If you can't get the same tile, we are changing all of the tiles, not necessarily that it is changing things that are functional, but because we can't change one tile and leave other tiles not talking to each other. But I can also assure the members that some of these issues were raised and brought to my attention. Specifically, Honorable Faber actually even invited me to his house for me to go and see if there is a need for the changing of things that we have put on our specification. I've since that then honorable members instructed the project manager and Kucha and the contractors that before any refurbishment takes place, that they have to confirm the refurbishment that will be happening in that property. And if need be, if there are minor things that needs to be changed, we don't need to do that. And I think that is the process that is being followed. And with regard to the matter that was raised to me by Honorable Faber, I requested that we do some work outside the house, which was kind of bad that needed to be done. And he agreed with one of the minor things that needs to be done in the house. But once these matters are brought to our attention, we do take them into consideration and try to deal with them. But we are trying our level best to ensure that we don't replace things that don't need to be replaced. To respond to some of the issues raised by Honorable Van Schalkwyk, on the budget, as far as we're concerned, for now, we are still on budget. We are 47%, which is in line with the work that we are conducting. We have completed, which is 47%. We don't envisage any budget overruns at this stage, but I cannot, if we have, I can foresee if we have a serious issue of members not moving and that there can be some extension of claims from the contractor point of view. But as I said, we had a meeting with the chief whips. They are assisting us, and we hope to meet the timelines of the project where there won't be any necessity for those extensions. The intercom system is part of the project. It will be conducted at the end of the project and make sure those intercoms are dealt with. On the subcontracting, the PSPs, grading, and the BE documents, we request that, Chair, we submit this information in terms of the grading of the subcontractors and the PSPs, and also the grading of the BE certificate of the contractor. With the learners, Chair, in my presentation, I've tried to be explicit that we have 17 learners that will be certified and 15 learners that will be certified through the TVET colleges. So we do, Chair, out of the National Youth Services, making sure that we could put them through a certification program. On the demolition, Chair, we are prioritizing the demolition and the building project. There were some kind of delays on our side to implement this project. I fully agree with the members that this is one other project we should have prioritized. However, Chair, we all know when we started the renovation project, and the acting DG has also alluded on the consultation process we went through, that this project was also one of the red flag projects that we needed to do. It was delayed over a period of time until the current members, the current administration decided that let's do this project. We are going to provide, Chair, again to you the project execution plan. I do agree with the sympathy with the issues that the Chair is raising, that we haven't put this project in his presentation. our focus, Chair, as we were instructed, was to look at the renovation and don't talk on the demolition. But we will provide the project execution plan within a week to the Chair and to the committee members. On the issue of the security clearance, Chair, we are doing everything possible on our side. We can actually only provide the information to the SSA once the contractor has been appointed, or at least towards the end of the process of the appointment, once we have at least the 3 contractors that are the runners to the bid. Unfortunately, we don't, Chair, as a practice with SSA, provide all companies that are bidding. But then what becomes an issue, Chair, here on this particular one specifically, it's not the contractor that is don't have a security clearance. Are the subcontractors, which the contractor will contract them after he has been appointed. So that process will take its time. And the time limits for the security clearance, it's about 3 months. But we are working with the State Security Agency with their own issues on their side to try to fast track this process. There is nothing much that we can do other than making sure that we provide the necessary information required by SSA for them to conduct the security clearance. It has been an issue, Chair, but I must say, despite those challenges, they have been kind of helpful because they have to deal with a number of companies, not only with us as Public Works. But Chair, to Honourable Heckling, I just wanted to explain that these are 2 contractors that now we have the issue of security clearance. It's a refurbishment process, it's a refurbishment project, and also the total facilities management contract. Now, in line with the BDO report, we have aligned our total facilities management contract with all other projects that we're doing in the Parliamentary Villages. If, for example, we will be demolishing the houses, we won't be paying for those houses in the total facilities management contract that we have just put in place in March. So we have aligned what was said with what was raised and suggested by BDO to a point, Chair, that in the bill of quantities of the total facilities management contract, we have 2 bills. We have what we call the corrective maintenance bill, and also we then have the preventative maintenance bill. That is exactly, Chair, what was required by the BDO, what was suggested in the BDO report, that instead of doing these haphazard maintenance programs without linking that to the total facilities management contract might lead to fruitless and wasteful expenditure because there wouldn't be a level of coordination. But we have done that, Chair, on this one, on this contract, where we have those 2 bills, which is the corrective maintenance, which will be looking at things that needs to be done on the planned maintenance program and things that we need to do on the preventative maintenance, which is unscheduled maintenance. I think Mr. Makutu has dealt with the issues of the JV instead of the subcontracting of how we operate, Chair. I think if there are any other questions, Chair, I will take them on the second round. I think I've dealt with some of the questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Acting DG. Thank you, Mr. Batu. Thank you, Mr. Sazon, for these responses. Honorable members, as I indicated earlier, we will have the second round of questions. For now, I don't know whether it's a legacy hand. It's Honorable Hicklin who has raised. It's a new hand.
It's not a legacy hand, Chair. It's just it's just a suggestion for me. We are the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. One of our entities is the CBE, the Council for the Built Environment. Surely the CBE would be the most logical place for us to look for people to whom we turn when we need subcontractors. surely the CBE will be the obvious place that we would go when we want to get people to assist us in the construction or the refurbishment of entities under our control. Why are we not making use of the people for whom we exist as a department? It's just a question. But thank you, Mr. Sazona and Mr. Moemi, for answering the questions that you have done. That was just an observation from my side. And I just want to echo your sentiments, Chair, about the asbestos roofs on the houses in the Parliamentary Villages. I live in a house that has an asbestos roof, as you do, Chair, and it is a concern. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honourable Hicklin. As I was saying that, do we have any other hands for the second round of questions? Do we have any other questions? Okay. Well, then it's Honourable Suwisa. Honourable Suwisa, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if my questions have been answered, Chair, that I've asked. I've tried to listen in between, so I'm not sure if they were answered. So I don't know. Maybe the presenters can tell if they've answered them, because I tried to listen in between to find out if they were answered, but I haven't ticked any one of them off. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Suwisa. The DM would like to join the meeting, as we all know that she was also responding to questions from the NCOP Select Committee. Can our host allow her to join? Apparently, she is in the lobby.
I don't see her in the waiting room, Chairperson.
Okay, maybe she's no longer there. Acting DG, Honourable Suwisa is saying that her questions were not responded to. Oh, no. Thank you, Honourable DM. Thank you. Can we respond to Honourable Suwisa's questions? Or okay, if we would like her to maybe again raise them, we would ask her if maybe you did not capture them well.
I think we had attempted to answer, but not directly. I guess perhaps let's try to do that for her. Okay. She had asked, she wanted to know the financial implications of our work on the Telcom Towers, whether we are now going to require additional resources, and if so, for what purpose, because there was already funding allocated in this regard. And I need to indicate that, yes, indeed, for phase one, the funding was allocated, and it's what has been presented and which has been ventilated. And whether we would require additional funding, yes, in terms of the originally envisaged model of implementation, the funding needed to come from SAPS in order to actualize this project. I had already, while answering what Honorable Graham Mare had raised, to also indicate that we have now reverted and opted for ROT, but initially we had sought to finance this by the savings that we would obtain from no more leasing from the private sector directly, but there's been a challenge with synchronization by when SAPS wants to move out. For instance, if I can just give an example which Mr. Mkhotu had provided of the Opera Plaza, where we and SAPS at management level agree that we need to migrate them by this time to the Telkom Towers. And the officials, this is a building used by the Hawks, and some of the officials do not move out at the date of they're supposed to move out. They say the move at that specific time is very disruptive to them and to the cases they are taking to court and all of that. As a result, we continue with Opera Plaza for some time because they are still stationed there. Despite us having exchanged correspondences to say would move. This has impacted negatively, not just that, but a serious number of areas of alignment between us and SAPS about migration. So the issue of migration and the migration agreement is what we are now insisting that SAPS needs to sign. We will need to sign that agreement with clear timelines and dates as to which of the sections from which of the leased out buildings we're going to have to migrate them and in which order and in what order of priority and to which of the buildings. And this will now pave way for that. The other issue that Honorable Suisa had raised was the issue of the delay, whether this delay was directly a result of the departmental issues or was it because of the contractor? I think it is both, and I think I must answer it that way. There were delays when DBSA was handed over the project and the DBSA appointed contractors, and those contractors experienced some delays in the completion of the works, and we have noted that in the closeout work, and this matter was ventilated at the meeting of the Portfolio Committee in May last year. And we had committed that thereafter it will be brought to practical completion, and interventions were made, and it was brought to practical completion, albeit beyond the timelines that it was supposed to. But there were also delays that we could attribute those to the department. And this largely, if you recall, around the planning phases and in us getting the agreements and confirmation of funding with SAPS, the process took a bit longer than it was originally anticipated, and thereby bringing further delays to the commencement of the program. And so if the question is directly who caused the delay, I would say that both our own actions with SAPS as well as those attributable to the contractor. And so I would say it is both. And then she also raised the matter that some members are unhappy, particularly about the work that is being done at Parliamentary Villages, and that she wanted to know why are we removing the things that really work and why are we replacing. She made an example of cabinets that she says, why are we removing such things when they are perfectly in good working order, and why are we not just replacing what is no longer okay. And I thought that when I was answering generically to the idea of the evolution of how we arrived at a point where we say we do total refurbishments, and the consultations that had ensued with the management at Parliament, I had attempted to answer this, but clearly I think that she would have preferred a direct answer in that regard. And she also asked, what do we do with all of these things that we are taking out? Where are they? I think Mr. Sazona can confirm, but when I inquired the last time, I was informed that this, indeed, there is stores and some of the things of prestige from the prestige state prestige program are in our stores, and those that are disposable, like damaged things and so on, they are disposed in terms of the departmental disposal policy in this regard. And she also wanted to know really at what cost are we doing this refurbishment. She wanted the specific breakdowns, which I thought that now in the second round, Mr. Sazona had succinctly answered that part. I would not know, Chair, if there's still anything that we have not provided a direct response to other than this specific 5 things I've pointed out to.
Thank you, Acting DG. I think we have captured and responded so well to what Honorable Suisa raised. Mr. Sazona also wants to say something.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you, Chair, there was also one question from Honorable Suisa, that why are we not doing all the 3 villages at the same time? We do them in phases. The response there, Chair, purely on the issue of the availability of the decanting accommodation. We only had 50 flats that were available at the time, so we couldn't decant everyone and do all the parks at the same time. So we had to do this through a phased approach. Acacia Park, which was kind of a bed, we had to start with it, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sazana. Honorable members, DM, any final words?
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you, Honorable members. I think in as much as I had to join the other portfolio committee, the select committee, coming back to the portfolio committee, I'm picking up as the engagements were unfolding, the concern around the time taken, especially with the Telkom Towers move. And I want to share the concern with as displayed by the honorable members, that indeed there's no running away from the fact that this project has taken too long. And it is against that background that even the portfolio committee on safety, the police, called our department together with the minister and the minister of police to the portfolio committee. And out of the engagements there were timelines and decisions taken, which both ministers committed the officials to, and both the ministers committed themselves on monitoring the progress thereof. I know that there's a meeting scheduled for next week for both Minister of Police and Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure for them to receive a progress update. One must indicate that it has been more of a case of Public Works blaming police and police blaming Public Works for far too long. And hence now the approach is to bring the two together under the supervision of the two ministers in the same meeting, so that this game of one pointing to the other and one trying to defend oneself, where we say in Isi Xhosa, we need to get out of that mode and deal with the issues. And hence, again, the approach that says when SAPS does not have money, let us look at other means, because the project has already been started. The agreement has already been agreed to move. What we now need to do, understanding the fiscal constraints as well as the SAPS budget or budgetary limitations, we do need to ensure that the project in itself is not compromised. And therefore, we need to ensure that the ROT, the refurbish, operate and transfer approach is speedily implemented, and hence the meeting of the two ministers with their accounting officers. I thought I needed to do that because now they need to ensure that the foot is not removed from the pedal and the eyes are not removed from the road as we move forward. There is that commitment and acknowledgement. That's one area I thought we needed to, in order to give comfort to the honorable members, for them to understand that we now have really taken charge and control of the project, and the timelines that have been agreed upon will not be compromised. But let me appreciate again the engagements, because they also give us time to look at other areas that might have been blind spots as we move forward. We take note of the concerns raised, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, TM, for these closing words on the responses from the department. I think Mr. Batu did allude to the fact, in fact, even on the timelines of the meetings of the two departments and the meeting of the management of the DPWI. I think one of the meetings is on the 10th, and another meeting 23rd and all that. But we really appreciate that there is a commitment to ensure that the towers are finished, not within what we have seen, that is the first tower from 2015 to 2022, that is within 7 years. Let me appreciate the contribution and the probing questions that have been raised by the members in this meeting, which show their commitment to ensure that where there are public funds spent, there is value for that, and also that they are here as public representatives. They have to play their oversight role in ensuring that whatever that is done by the department, it is done above board. We appreciate, Mr. Sazona, your commitment in saying that you will provide us with information of when the project that talks to demolishing the units that have asbestos roof. We are really looking forward to that. We can't be, as the people that are lawmakers, also be the culprits this time, that promote that people should stay in units that have asbestos roof. That one is not on. But we appreciate your contributions and your presentations and your responses. They shed some light on some things that had at least a little bit of gray area. We will always do this because we want to ensure that this department performs optimally. I think Honorable Hicklin raised an issue of CPE. We have raised this before. There is Agrema SA, which talks to innovations, even building innovations. We were there, we saw an alternative of building houses without using the normal brick that we know. So I think what that you'd be doing, Mr. Sazona, I think using some of those innovations would be the best way of advertising that there can be houses that can be built without using the ordinary brick. And I think Public Works is one of its departments that has to showcase that through its own properties, as the one that we are currently staying in, which is Acacia Park. Thank you again, honorable members, for your always progressive inputs in the meeting. Thank you, DM and Acting DG and your team for the responses in all that we're doing today. the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.